you talk about training, then probably I can ask as well about the training which is going on here in Latvia. You also have seen that. How do you see that? It's very like top level training. So how do you see? Are they like working like a mutual organism? You can say. Is it? How do you evaluate it?
Well, we're seeing a series of exercises and training opportunities being rolled out across the eastern side of NATO to provide reassurance and to reinforce that message that NATO stands rock solid behind Article 5 of the Washington Treaty, behind the principle of collective defense. And the exercises themselves cover a variety of different requirements. They involve different sorts of forces operating at different levels. But together, they are a very effective demonstration of the range of capabilities that NATO brings together from across 28 different nations and a number of partners to deliver a thoroughly effective, unified capability. They're working extremely well together and also with partner nations. And here on this exercise that we're attending today, we have Swedish and Finnish partner nation representatives.
That's good news. Yes. And the other question, and probably you also touched it, is about like the link between homeland defense and like overall defense. What can you say about that? How can that be linked?
Well, the two are inextricably linked. And of course, principally the responsibilities for homeland defense rest with the host nations, but there are things that NATO can do to assist with that. And right now we have liaison teams talking to national defensive forces about the sorts of assistance we might deliver. But of course, homeland defense covers a whole range of different sorts of activities, some of which are military, many of which are more in the social domain and lie outside our purview, but all of these actions need to be coordinated towards a common end. And of course, we need to define where homeland defense transitions across to collective defense, and we need to make the arrangements for that transition.
I see. Yeah, I would probably like to ask you about, there's a like different kind of warfare now, it's what Russia is doing. So what is like NATO's position, mission, or how can you deal with that situation? Because it's not like just armed forces; they are like using different instruments in war. So
well, I think it's a mistake to think that this is entirely new.
Yes.
You know, the combination of measures to achieve strategic ends is, you know, a long established principle. The combination of subversive means, working up responses from within a target population, creating dissent, destabilizing, all of these sorts of methods have been used many times in the past, and indeed in terms of military strategy, one seeks to address all these different aspects of warfare, as I say, some of which are not overtly military. And NATO, in its response, needs to address all of these aspects. And of course, in some areas, we need to defer to civilian agencies to do their part of what is an overall defensive strategy. But as I say, some bits of it are not overtly military.
What should be the priorities in upgrading armed forces in the current situation? What can you tell about that topic? Because I have quite a few topics to talk about.
Yeah, well, I think the priorities are not so much in upgrading as in finding where across the alliance different capabilities lie, because of course we have a broad range of different types of armed forces across the alliance, and the advantage of working together in a very cohesive alliance is that we can draw upon capabilities from different nations to build collectively a very joined up response.
Yes.
There will be individual areas where individual nations may wish to enhance their particular capabilities, and in fact, I was briefed on a number of areas that are being enhanced within the Latvian armed forces to deal with the very particular requirements that you have, and that's very good news. But NATO has a number of programs designed to bring together capabilities from different nations to deliver a collective whole that is more than the sum of the parts. That's the point of being in an alliance.
I see. Can we turn to like NATO summit in Wales? Because for quite a while I think there haven't been such a response to a NATO summit here, for example, in Eastern Europe, because still a month after that, like still in society there is response to that, and we're talking about that. How do you see from your position the implementation of those decisions taken there? What probably is the essence you have taken from that summit?
Mm-hmm. Well, a readiness action plan was agreed upon. It involves the refreshing of the NATO response force in the light of the current threat. That involves reviewing our deterrent capabilities and, if necessary, adjusting the responsiveness of various elements. Within that, we will create a very high readiness joint task force, about which much has been said, but it's just a part of a much wider response. We will be reviewing the command and control requirements to make them appropriate to the sort of timeliness that is required in the current circumstances. And we will be addressing a whole range of different issues, including getting response times for political decisions in line with the military requirements. So there's a lot of work to be done. I would see us over the coming weeks delivering military strategic advice from the headquarters that I work in, the Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe. We will deliver military strategic advice to the North Atlantic Council and to the Military Committee. And we will have decisions out of that which then can follow very, very rapidly afterwards, be followed very rapidly afterwards by concrete actions. And I think in the coming months you'll see the consequences of those decisions.
Probably we can turn to the situation in Russia because it's like the closest to us. How can you predict the situation? What do you think? How would it will end or not end, or what will happen with the war which is now happening in Ukraine?
Well, it's very difficult to predict exactly which way it's going. I mean, Russia seems to be approaching this in a rather opportunistic manner. And we must hope that the ceasefire, which currently does not seem to be holding in anything but name, because there are still engagements going on, but we must hope that that solidifies into a real process. And I think clearly for NATO, the response to this is in the diplomatic and political area, and with economic levers being used. We would hope that the situation will be resolved satisfactorily there. But for NATO, the fact that a nation has been prepared to use armed force to change the boundaries of sovereign states in Europe is a matter of great concern. And actually our requirement is to ensure that our deterrence is absolutely solid, that it is clearly understood that any attempt to direct such attention to NATO will be met with a very firm response, that the principle endures that an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us, and that there is no such thing as a limited conflict against NATO. You know, you attack one NATO nation, you're attacking all of us. That needs to be clearly understood. And I think when that is understood to be a fact, we have the scope then for really a normalization of relationships. But until that is clearly understood, we remain in a dangerous situation.
It's true. What about probably the objectivity of information? Probably, as I said, you are like on top of the hill and you probably gain the most objective situation of what is happening. But what can you say about like ordinary civil people? How to understand what is objective information in this situation?
Well, it's very important for us, where we sit at Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe, to look for accurate information in all directions. And it's extremely important for me to be able to be here in Latvia, to travel in the Baltic states, to get the perceptions, the understanding that people here have of the situation, which of course is rather different to the perceptions and understanding in different parts of the alliance. And in that way we bring together impressions, understanding, and we can establish a more consensus view of what the situation really is, and a better understanding of exactly what needs to be done to address the situation.
I see. But what could you advise for an ordinary person, how to get the information really objectively? What is an objective information at the very moment?
Well, listen to interviews like this, I would suggest. I mean, this is part of the process we're engaged in, to get information to people so they understand what's going on. Clearly, we stick by the principle within NATO of giving accurate information and of informing people of the truth behind the situations that we face. That's not always the case with the information coming from other directions, and I think people are aware of that.
Probably the last question, it shouldn't probably be the last, but it comes like it's the last. I asked you about Russia, but the other thing is Afghanistan, which is also like quite a serious problem. How do you see the development there?
Well, fortunately now we have a president,
yes,
and we have a political understanding upon which to move forward. In my experience, politicians in Afghanistan are very good at developing consensus politics, in keeping the disparate parts of the political spectrum in Afghanistan together and moving in a forward direction. President Karzai was very adept at doing that, and I'm sure that his successor will be as well. And with political unity and a common approach to the forward development of Afghanistan, I think the prospects are good. The armed forces that we've contributed to building have already proved themselves to be very capable. They're very determined, they're very brave, they're extremely committed, and they seem to be doing a good job in countering what remains a very significant threat from the insurgency. Now, that threat is not going to go away anytime soon, but we're confident that the Afghan National Security Forces have the capabilities to continue to keep it in abeyance and allow the political process to continue and allow the government to do its job. So I think the prospects are good in Afghanistan, provided we in the West, the nations that have been involved in this great coalition of 50 nations, together with others who have been involved more in terms of political support. You know, this group of nations, provided we keep assisting Afghanistan into the future and keep supporting them and giving them the confidence that the international community are with them, I think the prospects are good.
Okay, thank you very much.